So again, I would like to just invite you to participate to your fullest extent. Don't be afraid to ask questions and look for answers. If they can't be answered at this meeting, I can almost guarantee you that someone will find the answer and get it back to you. Again, thank you. Welcome.
For that opening. Next, we're going to have our own Dr. Calvin King, our President and CEO, to do one USDA urban and rural.
I say good morning to everyone as well, and thank all of you all for coming to be part of this roundtable discussion. And that's exactly what this will be, a roundtable discussion, and hopefully with engagement and participation from everyone, and particularly our resource people. You know, I want to start with this. You know, Mr. Lofton, he gave reference to the rural areas and rural community. And I must say, Bolivar, this community in this area is absolutely beautiful. It has great scenery, you know, in the area, in the county, and coming in the landscape and aspect of that. I was telling Ms. Williams, I said, you know, I'm gonna have to just come back when I'm not working, just to drive around and enjoy the environment and the scenery that's here in you all's community. It is absolutely a beautiful area. You know, I want to say this also, and it's something that, you know, I've been tempted to say for a period of time now, with the various meetings, you know, that we hold and convene in what I call sort of the tri-state area. But one is that all of those, both present and hopefully we are online as well, that I think this time, more than ever, is a good time for everyone, I'm saying all citizens, not just here, but throughout the nation, throughout the country, that when we think about our farmers and when we meet our farmers, we should say, thank you. Thank you for being a farmer. Thank you for choosing this as your occupational career. Because we all know, and sometimes we have to just stop and think about the fact that everyone is dependent upon agriculture and the responsibility of the farmers and what they do in supplying the food of this nation for the country itself. So they do it as an occupation. One would not say that it is as service, and it is not like the military from a defense perspective, but it is definitely from a necessity perspective that their duty and their responsibility provides to us as a society that which is the necessity for survival. So, and I said that to say this, and we should do the same with our USDA employees, because the USDA employees, they are there for the purpose of servicing and providing service to all of our farmers and all of the citizens in your local community, your local area. And when I said all the citizens, because based on the work of the farmers and what they do, not only from a food perspective, their work and what they do and how they do it impacts us in so many other ways. From an environmental perspective, everything from dealing with clean water, the air, but their practices and how they adhere to the proper practices has a direct impact upon us as a society. And they always do and always have done throughout the history itself. They have done it in a manner where it is in the best interest of the community and the citizens as a whole. That's the other part of that. And then from the perspective as far as the just individual consumers themselves. I farmed for 20 years, you know, and I grew up on a farm, you know, so, and I still live on that same family farm. I built my home on that same family farm. So the foundation of my upbringing, then I would be a third generation that has been linked to rural and production agriculture, from my grandfather, you know, to my father, you know, to where I am now. So I wanted to say that as we lead into the discussion and think about it from that perspective, both as a resident, a citizen in the county, in the state, in the area, understanding how important production agriculture is in our local community itself, how important our farmers are, and how important our USDA officials are, based on their duties and their responsibilities and what they do to provide an assurance of the survivability of farmers, and not only that, all the other services that's provided by USDA and just rural residents as a whole. If it's from the municipal perspective, county government, city government in rural areas, if it's our rural residents, if it's housing, if it's infrastructure, then USDA has been there and still is there in providing those type of services in our local communities. So I wanted to say that's my opening point, and I'm going to move on. Otherwise, Miss Jane is going to be kicking me on my ankles, saying you've already taken up all of your time. Now, when are you going to talk about the reason we're here and what this real roundtable discussion is going to be about? No, we're going to talk to you about natural resource conservation services, that being one, best known as NRCS with USDA. Used to be back as a part of history. And during my day and coming up, in my era as a child, it was called ASCS, Agriculture Stabilization Conservation Services. That's sort of the history of it. And I won't go into how it came into existence, by an act of Congress itself. Well, I'm not going to tell that whole story. She's looking at me now saying, now if you tell that story about natural resource conservation services, you're taking up somebody else's time. But I won't do that. But we're really happy to be a part of the partnership with USDA, and we say it's one USDA as a whole because there are different components within USDA, not just those who are represented here today with Natural Resource Conservation Services, with Farm Service Agency, and with USDA Rural Development. You have Ag Marketing Services and many other different divisions or components within the agency itself. But the partnering in the areas of what we're going to be focusing on today does have more to do with natural resource conservation services, Farm Service Agency, what they offer and what they are doing as a service as relates to rural development, as relates to production agriculture, and as relates to new opportunities. And when I say new opportunities from a agriculture perspective, and particularly those who may want to become a farmer. You don't have to have 1,000 acres or 2,000 acres or 500 acres, not even an acre to be a farmer now, because they have what you call urban agriculture. And with urban agriculture, if you have a lot, even one lot, you have space at the size of this room, then you can establish yourself as a farmer. If you have a large gardening area that individuals may work in, and they're dealing with both their home consumption from a food perspective, they may be dealing with direct-to-consumer marketing, supplying other individuals in the community, and where they depend upon you or other individuals. Say, well, I know where I'm going to get my good tomatoes from this year. I know where I'm going to get some good fresh squash from this year. Because it's the best that you can buy and the best that you can get. And they have some great herbs they produce also in that small acreage. So I'm gonna get some fresh herbs from them. But that's all a part of urban agriculture, what we call micro-urban farming today. And it does not take excessive acreage from that perspective. The other thing that we have talked about and what we have looked at from that perspective is urban agriculture and local food supply. And where some have seen and what individuals speak of as food deserts, that the opportunity in urban agriculture also offer both the opportunities to the consumers and to the local community itself from an urban agriculture perspective. I don't know if it's occurring here in Tennessee itself, but I know they have great farmers markets. I do know that. They have fantastic farmers market, but that's all a part of the local food supply itself. And those individuals who participate as what we call the urban or micro farmers. So they may be producing on small acreage or large acreage, and they're doing direct marketing through the farmers market to consumers. And that's a benefit to the local area and it's a benefit to the consumers themselves when you start to talk about the farmers market, first food supply, and local food supply. And I won't get into all the justification as to why it's so important, from the nutrition perspective and other areas. But that's just an example. But NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Services, Farm Service Agency are very, very key players in that perspective in making those opportunities a reality for those who want to participate and want to be a part of that arena as beginning farmer. You may already be producing, but just haven't established yourself as a micro-urban farmer. So you may know individuals, as Mr. Lofton said, the word of mouth basis of it. You may know individuals who are producers, and they are raising some beautiful, fantastic gardens. They're calling them their gardens now, and they are doing that and have been doing it for the years, and they may be participating with the farmers market, but they have not established themselves as a farmer. Now, if they have not established themselves as a farmer and getting a farm number, then that means you do not have access to certain other resources that could be very beneficial to you by way of USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Service. And they also have other programs with Farm Service Agency that could be equally as beneficial to you, and they may not have looked at it as something that they have the eligibility to receive the benefit from. And that's on financing that micro farming operation, financing their small scale farming operation, just as big operators do, and that's from the lending perspective, upgrading their overall farming operation, and it be more productive, both from a volume perspective, maybe from a quality perspective, and how you're producing the food. So that's another example from the Farm Service Agency. Another program benefits that they may not be participating in, and what we call mitigating or reducing or minimizing the risk factor that's involved in production agriculture. There are risk factors because there are so many things that you have to deal with and compete with, not just the market situation that can be very vulnerable. It has been vulnerable here recently in a lot of ways on the market side of it, both for the large farmers particularly, the supply, and what they have capacity to supply, and then the cost, for producing those crops or those crop enterprises to supply those markets that's there. But then you have the input costs, and the imbalance of the input cost factors against what the revenue returns can be on that, though, has been very challenging in production agriculture. And I do understand that because, again, I farmed for 20 years, and I understand the challenges that farmers are going through and have been going through in recent years, particularly the past 2 or 3 years or so. And I know all the USDA officials understand that as well. So, again, and then as USDA rural development, again, they always say that USDA rural development can build an entire city. They have the resources to finance an entire rural development. By chance, I don't know if you're rural development. I just thought I'd give reference to that. But rural development is not present, then I'll talk about that too. I'll talk more about USDA rural development. But the type of resources they have to offer in the way of housing, in the way of community facilities, in the way of infrastructure financing, everything from fire stations to water sewer systems, expansion of water sewer systems, upgrading water sewer system, both on the loan and grant side. Now they have those type of resources available in our rural communities, and they offer those resources. Now they make them available. Those resources are made available based on how people make the request and understanding how to make that request to USDA rural development. Community facilities, they have an energy grant program also, that relates more back to the agricultural sides of it. And some I think they do with housing as well. But their housing program offer as well, both the grant and the loan side of it. Now they offer the grant side under the 504 program. I'll talk more in specifics about that on the grant, the maximum dollar amount, and the accessibility of that under the 504. That's under the 504. And that's basically dealing with housing rehabilitation and rehabilitation on housing as it relates to safety, particularly on the grant side. I think that's very, very important because sometimes people do not realize or understand, individuals who want to live in their household as long as possible and have the capacity to do so. I know I do, and I'm definitely in no uncertain terms, as a senior citizen living on the farm. So that means you may be dependent upon home health services and those services that's provided. But individuals that are dependent upon that as senior citizens, one thing they have to report is that there's a safety situation as it relates to that particular household, that environment, because it not just involve the individuals living there, but also those individuals who are providing the service to the household from a safety perspective. It may have to do with mold in the household. It may be the flooring is not properly need to be stabilized. It may be that the flooring is not level the way that it needs to do, which could be a tripping situation, safety situation for the individual. It could be hazardous from possibility of fire because the electrical is not up to part of the code where it needs to be. These are only some examples that I'm giving as it relates to USDA rural development, the 504 program under the grant size of it, that's up to $15,000. And then they have the loan program at a 1% interest rate. Again, I don't think they're present, but I'll talk in more detail about that and answer questions that individuals may have as it relates to USDA rural development. So, I know I've gone over my time, but I do want to give reference to the other issues that are so often challenges. They're often challenges for us when you start to talk about underserved communities. And when you start to talk about minority populations to a great degree, and it's air property. Air property can be a challenge in all these situations as far as accessing the resources. If you're talking about the grant program, again, dealing with the house or resident that may have been left by the parents, and John, and I come from a large family, okay? And, I feel blessed that my parents had the foresight that they left a will and a trust, for the assets that they were able to build over the years, for their children, and that they left to us as heirs. So everyone don't do. I know many that have not, and we have cases that we work on from one point to the other as it relates to air property. But air property can be a challenge, and we're prepared to answer questions as it relates to air property as well, particularly when it comes down to accessing natural resource conservation services, getting the farm number, having the farm number being worn. It could be a challenge on that. Accessing rural development 504 program, grant program, our loan program, clear title and ownership in that perspective, and how you operate and do that. And we will talk about that in more detail, as it relates to USDA across the board, what they offer, how they operate, and how to address and deal with those challenges from an air property standpoint. Another thing we've been working with over the years, and I'm glad the county mayor is here. I'm sure he has experience and know a lot of things from the overall county perspective, when it comes to and dealing with technology, everything from a safety perspective with law enforcement, even in dealing with construction and making assessment of certain areas. But drone technology, drones are being used a lot more nowadays You may see it from a law enforcement perspective, doing certain investigations and things of that nature. In fact, drones can be very beneficial in dealing with farming as well, production agriculture. Right? Particularly if you're going to be a rancher and you're involved and engaged in livestock production. So when you have children that young people that have interest in drones and they want to do things with drones from one point to the next, don't discourage them, encourage them. But of course, monitor them from a safety perspective, and then encourage them to study and to know more about drones. Know more about drones, and even studying about drones, and then taking the test to become a certified drone operator. Because you need to be certified. The man knows you need to be certified as a drone operator. I was talking to an individual out of Tennessee, and he was talking about, he just loved drones. Young man. And he was talking about how he loved drones, and he has a number of drones, and how he used them for family gatherings. People hired him as a photographer, and then he used the drones to deal with other things from a photography perspective, if they're at particular park gatherings and things of that nature. But then, of course, I found the kids, right? You're never supposed to be certified to do that, right? You have your certification. Well, you have to have certification. Well, yeah, you have to have certification. There are certain things you have to do if you're going to fly a drone within a certain location or proximity to airports, and how you report where you're going to be flying this drone. Am I right there? Those are some of the requirements. So, my point is, encourage it from a youth perspective. That they need to know more about drones and understand drones and all the technology associated with drones. And then two, to study and understand how to become a certified drone operator, and how to use them even from a business perspective. And then those individual farmers, how they can be beneficial even with farmers and doing assessment of a farming operation that you want to get with NRCS on as relates to some conservation practice that you want to employ on that farm. So to be able to talk to them about it, to make the application for the services, and then produce the pictures and show them a picture. And I mean, you don't have to go out to do all this field thing. You can make some assessment up front based on the scenic makeup, if it's a hilly area, if it's flatland area, if it's a lowland area. And those type things, as well as in the production aspect of it, monitoring livestock herds, as well as doing areas what I call site-specific identification of certain plant distress when you're dealing with production, agriculture, and vegetable crops. But you can do all of that and those type of activities with drones and drone operations. So encourage young people. Now, my age, a little bit different. I'll be trying to get a young person to say, look, I really would like to hire you to come do this out on my farming operation. I want you to apply this section and give me some picture production back so I can see exactly what's what and talk to NRCS about this area that I'm going to sign up for equip on and do some land leveling and get an irrigation well put in. I know I'm going over my time, but I'm going to stop at this point again. We want to engage in discussions. I hope I've said enough on the opening to stimulate your thought process and other questions you want to ask as related to those who will be presenting to me, and then we can have some more detailed discussions about what is involved, what's available, the accessibility to that, and the benefits of those programs. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Dr. King. Now that you've heard programs and resource opportunities outlined, why they're here today, we also have asked the agency representatives to speak. And as you notice on your program, you may have different names, but we do have a Farm Service Agency farm loan program side. We have Joyce Murphy and Allison Rupp. Both will speak to you, and I noticed on the program is not here, and they will probably be speaking on farm operating loans, farm ownership loans, and micro loans, or for new and beginning farmers and so on. So I'm gonna ask Joyce to speak on behalf of Farm Mountain.
Good evening, everybody. Good morning, everyone. It's funny that I'm speaking because I spoke to this group at their Southeastern Landowners Association meeting. Just a couple months ago, probably last year in the latter part of the year. So they already know what FSA farm loans that we have to offer here in the Hardeman County area, as well as Alan, my counterpart, who works over here in Hardeman County with me. She's also available to answer questions as well, but most of them already know what we do. So, but I'll talk again and talk about the different type of programs, and whenever you want to jump in,
You got it.
just jump in. It will be like WWE. So, yes, but what we do offer farm loans here in the Hardeman County area, as well as the other areas that we serve, which is Shelby County, Tipton County, Haywood County, North Hardeman County, McNairy, Hardin, Lexington. Did I leave anyone? Anybody? Somerville. So yes, I am in the Somerville office each day, and Allie is over mainly in McNairy County, but she does come to Hardeman County. So I'm not over in the Hardeman County now. Thank you, Allie, for taking the tax from me. But I do go to Shelby County often as well. But again, we do different types of farm loans. We can make you a loan for $100 if that's what your need is, or we can go up on the direct lending side for farm ownership of $600,000. But direct is $400,000. As Dr. King talked about, we do have what's called micro lending. That loan limit is $50,000. And of course, it is catered to those farmers on a small scale who of course have that farm in the backyard, where they are producing those fresh vegetables, maybe to their church members or just the people in the community. And they did not realize that they was actually doing urban agriculture. So we do that as well. We have someone in the Shelby County office. She's our urban ag specialist. Her name is Danielle Bunn, and she knows more about all of those different types of grants and everything that you can get as it relates to urban agriculture, when you don't want to get into debt, because you gotta pay us back. We don't do any loans, but there are some grants out there that Danielle is more aware of as it relates to urban agriculture. Even if you come in and ask us for $100, we're gonna ask you for that $100 back, plus interest in 12 months, and the interest rate now is 5.375. So you're gonna have to pay that interest back to us. But you can come in and ask for a loan for anything as such as, I need seed for my cucumbers. I'm selling at the local farmers market here in Hardeman County. And we do have a lot of vegetable producers over here in Hardeman County that we work with. We do have some customers that produce rice. Yes, they produce rice here in Hardeman County. They like to plant it in the flood zone so it can flood. Or either they go in and install an irrigation system and they flood the rice crop. So we do have a lot of people in Hardeman County that serve as vegetable producers. They even produce rice. I have even made a loan for a rice harvester that came out of China, and they put it together. So when you go out there to that farm, I can't tell you where it is, but it's off Peavine Road, right across the railroad track. Sometime when you go out there, you will see them out there harvesting the rice. They have now sold their property, so they're not there. But about a couple of years ago, you will see them, and they will be harvesting their crop. We also make loans, unbelievable, to those that want a small flower operation, because we did have some customers over here that I work with. If you go down, I think there's 125, they used to plant tulips and everything right off there to the right of the road. Those are also our customers. So as Dr. King talked about USDA FSA, we offer a wide variety of loan assistance. A lot of people probably look at us and go, well, I'm not, I don't want a tractor, I don't want a combine, I don't want to plant those traditional crops such as the cotton, corn, wheat, or milo. And you have tomatoes in your backyard. But when you get into talking about that consumer marketing part, especially when you talk about urban agriculture, when you come in there and you see myself or Alec, the first thing we're going to ask you to do is put a plan together. If you're an urban agriculture producer, we're going to say, can you present us a plan? You growing your fresh herbs, your tomatoes, your bok choy, your zucchini, whatever that you want to grow in your backyard, as small as this area or as large as this area, or even smaller, in a pot or however that you decide that you want to do it. When you come in there and you ask us for financial assistance, we're gonna, of course, ask you for that plan. If you say, well, I'm growing cucumbers, I got some turnip greens, some purple hull peas, the first thing we're gonna say is, who are you selling it to? If you say, well, I'm selling it to my church members, or I'm selling it at the local farmer's market. If you're selling it at the local farmer's market, then that's fine, because you're gonna pay some rent or something to be at that local farmer's market. You have a steady flow of consumers coming in to purchase your goods. So we know that you have that income. But the first time you tell us, and I get this a lot, don't know about Allen, especially with working with Shelby County, even though I know I'm in Hardeman County right now. The first thing they're gonna say is, I wanna provide a fresh salad bar to the local school system. That's fine. Great idea that they have fresh vegetables, be able to go to the salad bar and get those fresh vegetables daily. But the first thing we're gonna say, do you have a contract with Hardeman County School System? If you have a contract with Hardeman County School System where they're gonna buy 100 head of lettuce each week, they're gonna buy those tomatoes, they're gonna buy the cucumbers, then we can then talk to you. We cannot make you a loan without a contract. That contract is really to protect you and the government's interest. Because if you say, I'm going to produce 100 head of lettuce and Hardeman County School System is going to buy it, we need to know that Hardeman County School System is actually going to buy it. Because in 12 months, we're looking for a payment. We have this contract with Hardeman County School System that they signed saying that they will buy 100 head of lettuce from you each week at $3 a head. We have projected your plan based off that income you should be receiving. So when you don't make that payment to us, we're gonna say, well, you got a contract with Hardeman County School System. Did they not purchase it? Or did you not produce it? Which one was it? So now it comes into that drone that you're talking about, and we going out in the field and we saying, hey, we need to see our collateral. Where's your lettuce? We need to see this farm full of lettuce that you're going to produce is there to Hardeman County. So it gets real tricky when the customer comes in and they have this bright idea to sell to Hardeman County School System so they can have fresh salad bar. And then sometimes they will get upset with us when we say, we can't help you because you don't have a contract. We have no way of knowing that Hardeman County School System really is going to buy this. And can you produce 100 head of lettuce on a quarter of an acre? Do you have the input? Have you thought about the fertilizer, all of the chemicals, the gas, and everything that comes with it when we're making you that loan to provide that fresh salad bar? We're gonna start asking you a whole lot of questions. And sometimes more often, you're gonna get upset because we're asking a lot of questions because you really hadn't sat down and thought about it because you just saw that you produced lettuce and you carried it to church or you gave it to your family members or when you had a family event that you were able to provide that fresh salad to your family members. So we're gonna ask you, what's gonna be your input? How much do you plan on spending in gas, fuel, and oil? Do you have the proper equipment to plant, maintain, and harvest? Because if Hardeman County School System has stated, we want to do this. We want to make sure that our kids are healthy. We want cucumbers, we want onions, we want the whole 9 yards. We're gonna ask you, do you have the equipment? That's gonna require you probably getting another loan from us because you're gonna need that equipment. Do you have the labor to provide and harvest all of that every week? Now, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. But when you come in more often, as I stated, you're looking at it, oh, I'm doing this in my backyard, I'm being successful. Now you got this contract, I'm ready to go. Can we help you? Yes, we can. But you're gonna have to bring that information in there that we're asking for. A lot of times, especially in Shelby County, hope the people online ain't from Shelby County because there's no disrespect. From Shelby County, they like to say, well, I'm gonna sell when Easy Way was back in operating form. Well, I'm gonna sell my vegetables to Easy Way. Ripley has the tomato market sold up. We all know Ripley is the home of the tomatoes. If you're saying that you're going to sell tomatoes to Easy Way, I'm about quite sure that Ripley, one of those farmers in Ripley already got a contract with Easy Way in order for them to buy it. Right now, we know the price of eggs are so high. If you want a chicken operation, a poultry operation, can we help you get going with that poultry operation? Yes, we can. We can finance those chickens. We can build a chicken coop, whatever that you need. We don't want you to get into that CAFO when you get so many birds that we got to get that environmental consultation involved, because then that's a whole different operation. But if you wanted to do that and you build this state-of-the-art chicken facility over here in Hardeman County, we're gonna start asking, have you spoke with the neighbors? Have you ran it in the paper? Because you know the scent that comes from the chickens, the neighbor may not want it in their community. So you need to give that community that opportunity to go to the meeting and voice their opinion with the mayor of the county to say, yes, we want this chicken facility in Hardeman County. Where's the waste going? If you got so many, we're gonna start asking you all of those questions. But you have to remember with us, there's no operation that's too small. If you just say, I want a greenhouse, we can help you start that greenhouse. So when you think of agriculture, don't think of it as the cotton, corn, the wheat, or the milo. You can think of the greenhouse operation, the poultry operation, even the goat operation. All of those livestock, Allie and I, we can help you get started. Now, is it gonna be a tedious experience? Yes. If you come in and say, well, I just want $5,000, we're not gonna ask you for as much as we will anything over $50,000. Just to talk about a little bit of the eligibility requirements and what we need in order to make that application complete. If it's $50,000 or less, we're only gonna ask you for 1 year of your tax returns. We're not gonna go into an intense verification process. We mainly gonna look at your credit report, and we're gonna go by what's on that credit report in order to project your plan to determine whether or not you're eligible and of course feasible, because we have 2 phases, eligibility and then feasibility. And when we say feasibility, that means your plan must cash flow about $1 when it's all said and done. So we get into that part. Now, if you come in there and say, oh, I want $1 million, I'm gonna say, we gotta look at a guaranteed portion of this, whether or not you wanna do participation. Have you spoken with your local lender to see if they are participating in our guaranteed part, which this is not on the agenda, so I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about guaranteed, because that's a whole different, another part of what we do as well. And so often we get what I want to grant, we don't have any. Those grants and the equip money, which I don't know much about, that comes from the NRCS side and is tied to, I believe, FSA program side. But when you speak to myself or Allie, we're gonna say we want our money back. And I like to say you have 2 ways to give it back, because we do work for USDA, the government. We're gonna get that money back by choice of force. That means you can pay it either one of those ways, but we want our money back. So we can help you. Chickens, if you want to start a chicken production now because the price of eggs is so high, and you may only want a couple of chickens, you don't have the facility to do it, then come see me at Abby. We're gonna ask you, who you gonna sell the eggs to? How much you gonna sell the eggs for? If you say, I'm gonna sell them at Maxwell's, the grocery store, have you spoken with Maxwell to see whether or not Maxwell will purchase 30 dozen of eggs each week from you? Because the minute you tell us we're gonna sell them at the local grocery store, we're gonna ask for that contract. But if you say, I'm going to the farmer's market, I'm gonna do it this way, I'm gonna sell them for $3 a dozen. Here's my clientele list. We may call them just to verify that you will be purchasing eggs from the producer or customer that we have. We will verify that information. So we can help you do whatever you need to do. Goat farmers, sheep farmers. I know right now I have an application on my desk where it's in Hardeman County, out in the Salisbury area, where a customer is requesting to construct a slaughterhouse. And we all know what slaughterhouses are, where you take in your animals and they slaughter them for to be approved USDA beef or however that you want to sell them, and you be able to go in and purchase that farm to table, from the farm to the table, and you have it. But when it comes to slaughterhouses, can we do it? Yes. His only hiccup is he is not producing 50% of the slaughtered animals. So if he was producing 50% of the slaughtered animals, then we will be able to do it. He can't say, well, Mr. Spencer gonna bring me in his livestock, Mr. Brown gonna bring me in his livestock. I got 15 farmers that's gonna bring me in their livestock. And when we look at that balance sheet, 50% of the livestock that he's going to be slaughtered is not his. And then another thing that's gonna hem him up is he's not producing any labor himself. He's gonna hire people to come in and work that facility for him. Our regulations state you as the producer, you have to be actively engaged in their farming operation at some point in some time. You just can't come in and get $1 million loan from us and you never go to their facility to work it, or you don't even know how to drive a tractor, or you don't know when the planting season is because you've hired somebody else to do it. You have got to be actively engaged in their farming operation. And as you all can see, I could talk here for another hour and a half because I do get excited about it. And there's a lot of things that goes into our lending. And a lot of times, as I stated, the smaller farmers, or even those larger farmers, they get disencouraged when we come in there and we say, okay, here's the application. You can take this and you can bring it back to me. They look at the application and go, I don't know what that is. We're here to assist you. So you can set up an appointment and you can come see one of your local FSA farm loan officers in our District 5, and we'll be able to help you fill it out. And I often tell people, if you don't know where something goes, such as this, we're asking for a list of your equipment, just write it down on a piece of paper. We know where it goes because we got to input it in the system as well. When you get to that loan that's over $50,000, that's when people really gonna look at us and go, oh my God, they're asking for everything except the child social security number. We're gonna ask for verifications of your IRA, checking savings account, if you got money markets account, everything, any debt over $5,000, we're actually gonna pick up that phone and we're gonna call Simmons Bank and say, hey, we got such and such over here, he showed this, can you verify this debt for us? We're going to verify everything. If it's $50,000 or more, we're gonna verify, we're gonna ask for 3-year tax returns. We like to see the complete tax return, not just the Schedule F that farmers file. We want to see the complete tax returns because that complete tax return tells us whether or not you have non-farm income and what that non-farm income is. We're also going to ask for your last 2 pay stubs. Yes, we will verify from your bank account as well if you provide it to us. More often, sometime in the past, because I've been around 32 years, we used to send what's called the verification of non-farm income to your employer and have them to fill it out. But now they kind of streamline that rule so you can just bring in those last 2 pay stubs, or we can look at that. If a customer is receiving Social Security, retirement, whatever income that you have, you're gonna have to bring that in to your local farm loan officer so we can project that plan. Because again, we have to do eligibility and we have to do feasibility. And customers tense up when we say, well, how much money you got in the bank account? Do they look at you and go, well, I don't want to tell you this. But we're gonna find it out anyway, because we're gonna call. A lot of times they'll tell me $2, and I'm like, if you got $2 in your account and you're asking for $600,000, something ain't adding up already. With $2 in your account and you're asking for $600,000. So, okay, I know you holding some information from me, and that's okay. You gotta learn who I am before you feel comfortable in giving me that information. So we receive that, and we know sometimes when you come in, you are tense because you don't know what we're getting ready to ask you. And we're just handing you this package right here saying, here, fill this out and bring this back to me. And we are somewhat not as quick as a bank. And we like to tell people, now you can't bring this application to hear me today. And you think you're gonna get a letter saying that 2313, that approval letter saying, your loan has been approved. We do not do pre-approval. So often we get, can I get a pre-approval letter? No, sir, no, ma'am, we do not do pre-approvals. And with that being said, not only do we do direct lending, if you want to purchase that property right now, and we know with Blue Oval being in Fayette County, property has skyrocketed, and it's trickling over here to Hardeman County as well with the influx of the cost of real estate. But if you want that real estate loan, again, we can loan up to $600,000. We can term it out up to 40 years, up to 40 years. We can go up to 40 years, up to $600,000. $600,000 is not enough in Somerville now or Fayette County to purchase anything. So that's when that guaranteed portion come in, where we can do a participation loan. And our total loan limit, I think, is $2,815,000, but it's in the 2 million where we can total loan, but that encompasses all of our loan lendings, which includes our direct emergency lending as well. Right now, Hardeman County has not been declared as a disaster, nor is it contiguous based on the disaster declaration that's out there. We do know with the tornado that came through, there will be a whole different disaster if it is declared a disaster from the president's office. So we can do whatever that you need us to do. A lot of times people don't know, we offer youth loans. Youth loans are for those kids between the ages of 10 and 20. 10 and 20 years old. It is a loan solely in their name. Of course, mom and dad have to sign off on it as an advisor, as well as the FFA teacher if they're in high school, or the local 4-H agent will have to sign off saying that they will advise that youth on their project. That loan can be up to $5,000. We can term that out. When they change that?
This year.
Oh,
$10,000
so it's gone up to $10,000.
Yeah.
Tag team, see, tag you in. So yeah, $10,000, and it's strictly that child's loan. They can buy cattle. They can buy farm equipment. I've seen where I've had them where the neighbor has real estate, a farmland. The property has grown up. The youth recipient of that youth loan, he comes in, he uses daddy tractor. He comes in and says, I want to bush hog. Because I'm going to bush hog Miss Sally, Miss Mary, Mr. John. I'm going to bush hog their property 3 times a year. They're going to pay me maybe $300. We're going to take that loan and we're going to make him that loan. Their payment, when it was $5,000, may be $760. So if he bush hogging 3 people property 3 times a year, and that each time he's probably getting $200, he's going to be able to make him a little money to buy his video games or his new Jordans or whatever that he wants, as well as come back in 12 months and make his payment to us. If they need livestock, we do. I've had one of you that did stopper calves, where each year she sold her entire herd. And the next year she will come back and get another loan. She ended up making, just to start her college career off, I think, with her stopper program, and she done it for like 5 years. She probably had about $6,500 from what she had done from her stopper calves, just to help her parents when she got ready to go to college. So there's all kind of ways that we can help you, but we ask that you be patient, because we are not a bank. We cannot go to that vault and pull that money out in 3 days. We have to send it up and get it obligated from DC and everything like that. So we cannot go to that bank in the vault and pull it out and say, here's your loan. And when you come in there and you want real estate, again, we are not as expeditiously in our lending because we don't have underwriters. We do the whole thing from start to finish. We're going to take that application. We're going to get it complete. We're going to do everything. We're going to request that appraisal. The only thing that we're not going to do is actually go out and appraise that real estate that you're wanting to purchase. But everything else we're going to do. And as I stated, $600,000 up to 40 years, I believe that interest rate may be 5.75 or 5.35, but we have what's called limited resource rates and terms now. We hadn't used that in a while because the interest rates were so low. So now we have 5%, and of course, up to 40 years. But if you come in and say you want a real estate loan, the first thing I'm gonna ask you, one of the first things will be, do you have a contract? If you bring me a contract from the seller that says 30 days, I'm gonna take that contract. But I can tell you now, that loan will not be completed in 30 days. We're gonna ask you, can you go back to the seller and amend this contract? The sellers don't agree with it because they want their money right then and there, as well as the realtor. They're ready for their commissions. We like to say, can you get a 90-day contract? So often the sellers will frown and go, 90 days? We need at least 90 days from start to finish to make sure that we have an appraisal in alignment with our regulation. If you're going to be constructing something on that real estate, you're getting into a whole different era as well, because now we've got to do environmental consultation where we cannot even really make an approval on that loan until we hear back from SHPO, Tennessee Wildlife Association, and all the Indian tribes that may have some dealings with any disturbed or historical preservation that may be on their property that you're looking to purchase. So we do ask that you get a 90-day contract if you're wanting to purchase real estate, because again, we're not a bank. We cannot get it done in 30 days. Can you get it done in 30 days? Cannot get it done in 30 days. 60 days is pushing it. You're pushing it real close with 60. So if you give us that grace, extend that grace with us, because again, we're doing the whole thing, even if it's just a micro loan for $100 or $5,000. Myself and Allie, we're doing the whole thing. We do have technical staff that often helps us, but we're the decision makers on those loans. So we ask for grace when you come in there and you speak with your local farm loan representative, because we can help you, because we are USDA and we are here to serve you all as to what you all need. And again, I want you to remember that farming is not all row crops. It's anything farming. And as Dr. King talked about that urban ag aspect of lending, we can assist you with that as well. But anything you come in with myself or Allie, of course, you're gonna have to pay it back, because at this time, we don't do grants. And I heard Dr. King talk about, the old ALCDC office and now how it became what it is now. Just to piggyback on what you said, I was around when that reorganization took place back in 1994, 1995. And of course, it used to be what's now called Farm Service Agency, used to be, of course, ASCS, and it was Farmers Home Administration, which Farmers Home administered the lending part of the housing, as well as the lending part of farm programs. So back in 1994, under that administration, which was President Clinton at that time, and the Secretary of Agriculture was Mike Espy, they decided to do a reorganization and merge that Farmers Home Farmer Program side with ASCS, which is now Farm Service Agency. And they changed the name from Soil Conservation Service, because I did an intern at Soil Conservation. They changed the name from Soil Conservation Services to now what's known as NRCS, which is Natural Resource Conservation Service, to make it one USDA service center. So when you come into your local USDA service center office, you're gonna often find farm loans, farm programs, NRCS, and you may be able to get a rural development representative there as well, because they did another reorganization, I think about 15 years ago, where they pulled them out of the local service centers and put them at substations in a central location. But the one here is in Jackson, and that ain't my lane, but I do get a lot of phone calls about rural development and how we can do that in the 504 grant, which Dr. King talked about as well, because I had more knowledge of 502 and 504 as well, as it relates to what was being Farmers Home Administration housing process. But again, we are the farm loan representatives of FSA, and no loan is too small. So if you feel like you need our assistance, we can help you. From anything as to constructing that chicken coop, even had a customer that, what I'm gonna call was feeder chickens. And he was from Hartford County, never knew that somebody out of the city would come and buy just a chicken to have in their backyard, but he done very well on his feeder chickens, and he would sell a chicken for $50. And believe it or not, you had people just wanting a beautiful chicken that he has raised from a chick to a layer for $50, but he done very well. Greenhouses, we do greenhouses, so when you see Lee's greenhouse, he probably don't mind me talking about him, so when you see Lee's greenhouse also, and that's Hartman County, Whiteville area, think about us. Penner down there on the 64, Rob Penner, yes, I'm using some names, but they're all from the Hartman County area. Think about your local FSA office here in Somerville that we also service here in Hartman County as well. So a lot of people that you see, I even know the mayor's daddy, because I asked him when they came in, I said, are you so-and-so, so? He said, yes, that's my dad. So I know a lot of things that goes on in Hartman County. We are here to help you. Of course, Allie is in Hartman County on Wednesdays.
First Wednesday of the month.
She's here the first Wednesday of the month. I do have some customers that I started dealing with that they still call me, but Alex, we tag team Hardeman County together to make sure that you all over here have what you all need as it relates to USDA FSA. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. One, with the youth program, are you looking at the parents' finances? What kind of paperwork is turned in for that child to qualify for a loan?
It's an application. Just the application. The parents won't have anything to do with it. We won't pull a credit report. We won't pull anything. It's strictly that child. And somebody said, well, how can a 10-year-old get a loan? You have to ask the government that question. But if you're coming out of us, we're gonna make that 10-year-old his loan. If he has that application, the parents have signed off on it saying, yes, we're willing to make sure that he do what he's supposed to do. And they've spoken with the local extension, that 4-H agent, or if they're in high school and they have FFA, that advisor has signed off on it. It don't have to be both. It can be either or. It's just depending on their age limit. If they're in FFA or if they're in 4-H.
My second question is, I get the impression that to get a loan from FSA, you have to have had a track record. So you don't finance loans for beginners.
We do. You don't have to have a track record. If you just come in off the street and you say, hey, Joyce, I need a tractor. I'm gonna say, here you go. Here go your application. Would you like for me to go over your application with you and tell you what you need? Depending on the dollar amount that you're asking, I'm gonna ask you for 1-year tax return versus 3-year tax return. So you don't have to have a track record because we do make loans to those beginning farmers. But the only thing I like to say about a beginning farmer is when it comes to the purchase of real estate, and the farmer comes in and says, well, I found this tract of land over on 125. I want to buy it. One of the questions that I'm going to ask you to be eligible, do you have 3-year prior farm experience out of the last 10? Which means, have you been farming 3 years out of the last 10? If you said, well, no, I'm a beginning farmer, I want to start farming, you're not going to be eligible for the purchase of real estate only, unless you can provide to me that you've been farming 3 years out of the last 10. You're not going to be eligible. But if you said, well, I don't want the real estate, I just need a tractor, or I need some input cost, that eligibility requirement does not apply to you. And we get the customers that go on the internet and say, I'm a beginning farmer, I want to purchase this. One of the first questions when you sell real estate, have you been farming 3 years out of the last 10? Show me your tax returns, show me some receipts from the tractor supply, some from John Deere where you have a tractor, you just never realized that you was actually farming, and you maybe should have been filing a Schedule F tax return, but you got proof to where you've had chickens, you've been selling the eggs, you've been doing this and you've been doing that. That counts as documentation to us that you've been farming 3 years out of the last 10. If you don't have what we like to see, which is the typical Schedule F on the tax returns. That's the only reason that we're gonna tell you you're not eligible, is when you come in there and mention farm ownership. But to walk off the street and say you want a tractor, or you wanna start this, or you need this, you do not need prior farm experience, because we're going to help you. Now, if you come in and say, like a lot of cattle farmers will come in and say, I got this property, I want 100 head of cattle. How many acres you got? 50. Maybe you wanna scale down that operation a little, because 100 head of cattle on 50 acres, you're gonna be buying a whole lot of hay. How are you gonna do past the rotation? How are you gonna do all of that? We're not gonna tell you no. We're gonna work with you to say, if you got 50 acres, why don't you look at putting 25 out there on that 50? And then I'm gonna say, have you thought about your inputs? That's where the input gonna come from. Ally and I, we're gonna sit down. If you don't have any records, we're gonna pull that UT budget on livestock. That UT budget is going to tell us how much feed, how much input that you need. We're gonna say, you do understand, with 50 head of cattle, you're gonna have this much input. Now, keep in mind that first year, if you are a cattle farmer, we're not gonna tell you no, because you're just walking in off the street. We're gonna help you make your dream a reality, but you gotta work with us. We're gonna say, if you scale it down a little bit, think about the inputs, and we're gonna say, now you do know that first year, we got a payment of 12 months. Unless you buy some cattle already pregnant, you're not gonna be able to make this payment, because you're not gonna have any ready to go to the sale barn. Because you gotta get them out there, you gotta get you a bull, and you gotta get them pregnant. You gotta get that calf on the ground, get it to at least 400 pounds or more, take it to the sale barn, which now your payment is 12 months. So now you're looking at 18 months where you got them, got pregnant, got them big enough to take to the sale barn and get some money for them. You didn't miss your payment. And that's that 91st day when you become delinquent, we're gonna start servicing your account. But we're gonna tell you, maybe you can scale this down a little bit, and the money that you have from your non-farm income, or the money that you have coming from somewhere else, it can help offset this first payment. But we need you to keep in mind, you got 50 cows out there, you may get a good 20 that you can take to the sale barn after that calf. But you still got a payment due, and you had costs associated with your herd out there. So we're gonna go over all of that with you, even if you just brand new coming in off the street. We will sit down and talk with you the whole 8 hours that we're there to make sure that we're helping you understand what we're asking for. We're not gonna put you in debt just to put you in debt. We're gonna say, if you scale it back, we can help you. But if you asking for this, we can't do this because your plan is not going to be feasible, because you're not going to cash flow once we put that plan in place. And she's standing up on me, so let me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Is there anyone online that want to ask questions? All right, we're gonna move on.
Can I ask one quick question?
You sure can, yes.
Should be able to quick answer.
Yes.
Given the situation that we presented regarding the lettuce or cattle, oftentimes there may be counterproductive situations. Do you require insurance?
We do require that you get, if you want that crop protected, if a disaster was to come and you're not insured on that lettuce crop, and you got $50,000 out there with no insurance, we're gonna ask you to get insurance. But if you say, I ain't worried about that, then we still gonna want our money.
Not a requirement.
That's what I'm.
You,
Yeah.
We want our money.
You're advising,
Now, what I'm gonna
it's the
say
risk
is,
that you're taking.
it's the risk that you're going to take. But if it's equipment involved, if you come in there and we do an equipment loan to buy $500,000 combined, we want you to have insurance on that piece of equipment. We're gonna ask that insurance agent to put FSA farm loans on there, so we can see that he has insurance, but crops is a little bit different. But equipment, we're gonna ask that you get insurance on that livestock, because if your cow get out and somebody hit that cow, they're coming after you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna ask that you get insurance, but a crop, sometimes we let that customer make that decision as to whether or not they're going to get insurance, because now you're getting into the program side. But NAP and all that other stuff, which we gonna still want our money. And when you get the payment from the program side, guess what? We gonna take it, cause we gonna put out a lien on whatever that you got out there. And then if you buy that $500,000 combine and you don't have insurance, it ain't our fault that you didn't have insurance on it, because we told you and you signed this 2313 that said you are required to have crop insurance. And for some ungodly reason that it catch fire in the field, cause it has happened, we still want our money for a piece of equipment that you don't have.
okay, thank you. Okay,
Just one other thing on the farm service side. If you don't take out crop insurance, mitigating the risk, and there's a disaster, that could be a determining factor of you being ineligible on the program side. So they have the farm program side, for emergency disaster services that's on program, which means that, and you hear it all the time, disaster effects, and the government, of course, addresses those issues, they deal with agriculture that way, same thing with community disaster, things of that nature. But if you have not mitigated your risk with insurance, then you could be ineligible to receive the benefits which everyone gets on disaster support services on the program side of FSA. So we have a double risk factor.
okay. Next, we're gonna have, our NRCS, representatives here, who is Harold Pettigrew from the state office. So we're gonna ask him to give presentation.
So, all right, we'll dive back a little bit, because I don't want to overload you with a whole bunch of information, and we get started, manuals for you that gives you all this information that I can possibly go over, right? And it's better for you to actually put your eyes on it, digest it, and then have an understanding of what all of our agencies do, right? So in this Get Started manual, we have rural development, we have FSA, and we have NRCS, and it shows you how we have a marriage, how we have a partnership with everyone, how each one of our programs work, how each one of our fundings work, right? And so what I've been asked to talk about today is about EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentive Program, our CSP program, which is our Conservation Stewardship Program, and then a little bit about our easement programs, right? I do want to talk a little bit about CRP, which is our Conservation Reserve Program, not ours, FSA program.
Right.
We just help do the technical side, right, the planning of it, right? But as far as the process of you going and getting into that program would all be with FSA, then they'll come over to us, we'll do the technical side. And people get a little confused on that when they come into our office and ask about CRP, and we're like, well, we gotta wait until you go to FSA to be able to do that CRP with you, because we're technical. What happened is that we put technical with a little bit of money to give you incentive, right? And so that's where our soil conservation district started, was just purely technical advice, technical service, right? But then we said, what's even better than giving people technical service? Let's give them that incentive so they want to go out and do great conservation, good conservation, right? So then that's where we go into the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, right? How we look at the Environmental Quality Incentive Program is that you have to have a resource concern. And when I say resource concern, I'm gonna use our terminology that we utilize within our field offices, so you can have an understanding of how to talk to our field office staff, right, our field office employees, because if you don't know the language, they really don't know what you're saying, right? And so a lot of the times when people come to our office and say, hey, I want to do something within our CS, can I do livestock, or can I do pollinators, or can I do this, that, or whatever, right? What we're looking at is something we call SWAPA, right? Does it deal with soil, water, air, plant, animal, human, energy, anything that goes into that operation, right? We can help you with any one of those things, right? And so when we talk about those things, those are resource concerns. So when you go into our office, you ask us for, not a loan, because we don't do that, right? And grants are totally separate than what our programs are offering. Our programs are offering cost assistance. And that's what a lot of people confuse with the grants. We do have grants, but those are totally separate from cost assistance, right? And when we're usually looking at cost assistance, we're able to do 50 to 70% of that actual project. So it can be a huge project, right? And I always tell people, the way you have to look at this is that sometimes people come to our office and say, well, the total project's 100,000, you're only giving me 70,000. You're correct. We are only giving you 70,000 for this $100,000 project that is going to benefit you and your operation and your yield that you will make an income from. We do not ask for any of this money back. We just ask for good conservation. Now, what people get confused on is, if this project costs me 100,000, why are you giving 7,000? Well, think about it like this. You went to a car dealership and that car costs you $80,000. That day, the car dealership was giving you all a great incentive to come in and pay for that car, right? And they said, well, we'll actually take 70% off of that car. Would you still look at that car dealership and say, that's not good enough? Nah, I don't want the car, right? And so that's what kind of happens with when you're dealing with us. People have the expectation that we're going to pay for your total project. But we can't. It's taxpayer dollars, and so we have to spread those taxpayer dollars out. And so that's why we have to have a resource concern versus this is just something that you want to do on your property. Now, even when it is just something you want to do on your property, your land, it does coincide with a resource concern. 9 times out of 10, it has to, right? Because you're dealing with the environment. And there's always a better way that you can take an approach when you're working with agriculture. We are a science-based agency, right? So any input or any advice we give you, believe we have researched it for years prior to us giving it out to the general public and saying, this will work. So what we do is we set it up with EQIP, right? EQIP is like, how I explain it, you're coming in entry level and you're already doing an operation, but you want to make it a little bit better, or you might already be in an operation, you're having trouble. You might have a forest stand that you're saying, hey, I'm having a disease come to my forest stand. How do I stop this disease? We're going to go out there and we're going to assess that forest stand. We're going to stop that disease for sure. Because we have all the research that's backing what we're doing, right? So we're not just loosely going out there on people's property because their property is something they want to pass down to their heirs, right? That's passed down to their family. So it's a family thing. So we're never going to be in the position to try to take that family operation out of operation or do something that can hurt it and potentially lose that operation, right? So we want you to come in if you haven't worked with us and try EQIP, right? EQIP is going to set you down. We're going to go through the basics with you, and we're going to start getting you ready to rev up so we can really start producing on that land the way it should be. So if we come in there and we have to do the first thing in Swapper, right, is the soil, which is what we were built on, the Soil Conservation District. We're going to go in there and we're going to actually review your soil to see if it's even capable of yielding what you're trying to yield. So the first thing that we usually do when we step foot on that property, if we want to do a soil test, because that's where we started, is soil. We know everything about soil, any input that goes in the soil, how that soil is going to get this output, because it's a living thing, and we all forget that sometimes. That soil is living, so you have to put those inputs in so that soil can keep on doing whatever you want to do for you to have that yield that you want. And so that's why we start off with EQIP. It's not a lower level, but it's more of an incentive to get you in the door, right? So if you're a new and beginning farmer, we're now going to give you that incentive to give you 50% of that payment up front. That 50% of payment has to be utilized within 90 days. Most time, we're not going to ask you for a receipt. We just have to have an acknowledgement that you said this money was utilized to go into this project and was used up in 90 days. Now, a lot of people get held up on that. They think, I got to produce all these receipts. I got to go over here. Stop. You don't. Think about it. Whatever you needed for that operation to run, we're giving that 50%, so you don't have to take that upfront 50% because we understand that anything in these operations at this point is expensive. And so as a new and beginning farmer, we understand you probably won't have those resources that other farmers have been in production and had time to build up those resources to put towards their operation do have. So we give you that incentive in a new and beginning farmer. If you're a veteran and you haven't been out of the military for more than 10 years. So we have a few different options that you can take. But that's why we like EQIP, because if you are a new and beginning producer, those incentives of that 50% up front are great. And then you go and do that project, be it pollinator habitat, cover crop, water waste management, whatever you want to do, we can do that, right? And so now when you have that established and we go out there and we assess them, we're saying, you're doing a great job. We think you're ready for conservation stewardship program, right? And the difference between conservation stewardship program and the EQIP program is that one is at the beginning level, the other one is you're enhancing it. So you have to have something to enhance if you want to go into the conservation stewardship program. Now, once again, the EQIP is great because usually you're probably gonna get paid just a little bit more on those practices versus those enhancements, right? Because those practices probably have not been established yet. The enhancements are taking that practice and enhancing it, exactly what the word says. So we're not gonna give you as much money because you don't have to establish it, right? And so with that being said, we give you an annual payment. Now, the annual payment is the incentive once again. The annual payment says that you all have been great stewards on that land. So we're gonna review your land and say, hey, the things that you have done well, we're gonna give you an annual payment for that. And that annual payment is gonna happen each year of that contract. Excuse me. So now that takes on the cost that you might have up front in the beginning of the year because you know you have that guaranteed annual payment. The annual payment has nothing to do with the payment we're gonna give you for that enhancement. Those are two totally different payments, right? And then when you talk about EQIP, it's on a basis of once you complete that project, you are paid. Conservation Stewardship Program, it is once that portion of the project is completed in that fiscal year, you are paid. So it's two different things. You have two different waiting time periods, right? But the first thing you need to do is establish those records, right? And a lot of people say, what is establishing records? I don't understand what they mean by that. All we're simply saying is get a farm and tract number from FSA if you do not already have one so that you can be eligible for USDA programs. They're like the record keepers. If there is no record of you, we cannot help you and we cannot go further with you. Now, the most important thing on that farm data report is that you are listed either as an owner or a manager. And that goes back to what she was saying is that you have to have some skin in the game for us to be able to give you funding towards that operation. We want to see you actually involved in that operation prior to us being able to give you money for that operation. So that's the first, that's a lot of the time people let other people be the managers. You might not even show up on the farm data report. Well, you need to make sure that you are definitely on that farm data report because then you have the rights to make decisions. You will not be making any decisions on your own property as far as it comes to the program side, right? And so we want to be very clear on that. Have ownership on there, be a program manager on there, or a manager, excuse me, on there so that you can have the rights to make decisions on whatever USDA program you want to get into. Now, our programs are amazing because they are incentive-based, conservation-based, but you do not have to pay them back. So I know there's a lot of things going on right now that there's a lot of scams going on. People will help you set up different things with us. We will never ask you for any money to help you do anything because you've already paid your dollars and your taxes. So if anyone ever asks you to pay any money to help you set up anything that deals with FSA, NRCS, Rural Development, FPAC, it's fraudulent. We don't ask for any money.
There is that's a good point about the air property. That's a problem here in this county and the surrounding counties. If things are tied up in probate court, or if there's a dispute, or if there's a cloud on the title, they have to provide a proof of ownership with a deed or a tax record, because if it says and others, then it could be a list of 50, yeah.
And every single person's interested in that. I dealt with that in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Where I had to go and make sure that they had every single one of those 24 signatures on there.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. So when you're dealing with air property again, if that person isn't going to be in operation or dealing with that property, you need to really figure out who in your family is going to be operating that property. Now, if you all set up something behind the scenes that shares our workout or whatever else, or that person buys those people out, because that's usually what happens, then that's great. Then do that, right? But when they say that you have come to their office with some type of plan, well, we do technical service as well, so you don't have to sign up for our programs to help you, and we can always still do technical service for you. Even when you go to our website, we have something that's called the Build Office Technical Guide. That gives you all your specs and standards, so if you want to do a project, even if you want to go build a fence, you know the correct way to go out there and build that fence, you have the specs and standards to that. We don't hide that or anything else, because we always want to be transparent, and we want to help you even when we can't help you. Because our timeframes just might not work for you sometimes, right? Just like they said they need 90 days, usually our planning process is a year out. So when you come in that fiscal year 24, you can expect those things to start happening fiscal year 25. But we do have something that's called Act Now, right? And it kind of gets you through that red tape. We created a suite of activities and practices and enhancements that we say, hey, we can be retroactive funding these. We can make sure that we get right in there and we start helping you fund these. They could be high tunnel. These can be all different types of things within that list, right? So when you go into that build office, make sure that you have your build and track number. Make sure that you understand your resource concern, right? Because if you do not understand what a resource concern is, they will not be able to help you. Because at that point, they're not saying that it's something that you need, it's a want. And those are two totally different things when you're dealing with taxpayer dollars. And so that's why we want you to have an understanding of how to walk into our office, how to get that help, and to understand that even if we can't help you, we want to partner you with someone who can help you. Even if that's with FSA, the Conservation District. This is why we all work together, because sometimes our timeframes might not work out for you, but we do have a partner who can help you do whatever you need to do. Even what we're doing right now within our CS is that we're trying to connect that producer with that person that wants to buy their item, right? And so we want to keep pairing those relationships. Now, when you talk about urban agriculture, right? And we did a great job marketing that, right? Across the board. But now when you go into our offices, right, they're kind of getting away from that language. Now we're saying small scale or any scale operation we can help you out with, right? The difference between those things and the things that you want to know when you go in there and you're looking for resources is that the incentive when you do a small scale operation or urban scale operation is the money amount on our side. We give more for that footage on the small scale. So what I mean by that, anything that's 2 acres or less is considered small scale operation, right? That we will give you more money. So even if you're going into FSA and you're creating your records, your farm data report, you might want to split that field out, especially if you're renting that land to someone else and say, hey, I'm just managing this 2 acres, which gives me the opportunity to take on a higher pay rate on like practices or the same practices that you might do on large scale. The reason being is because large scales have a lot more acres to work with, so they're going to get their dollar amount, right? If you don't have a lot of acres to work with, that dollar amount is not going to be able to push you where you need to be able to go. So when you go in there and you're talking to them, make sure that you're telling them what size your operation is so you can get that dollar amount that matches up to your operation size. If not, they might be putting you in a higher and a lower payment.
You all help them develop like a structured business plan, or is that
We used to.
that's asked for in the application process?
It used to be asked for in the application process. We took it away. So not so much as a business plan versus a conservation plan that utilizes a business plan, but it won't have your day-to-day like your diesel costs or anything else that's going to be an input into that operation. But when you talk about forest management plan, for instance, now that's something that everybody, I don't care if you have 10 trees in your backyard, you should be looking to get a forest management plan. Because that forest management plan, if you do have a forest, is going to tell you what it is worth. It's going to tell you everything that needs to be happening on that forest. It's going to tell you the beneficial trees to release. It's going to give you a whole map of 10 to 15 years of how you should be operating that forest to make the highest potential amount of money possible and do great conservation that guarantees that you're able to keep this operation going for generations to come. Someday.
Sorry, I was just gonna clarify the question he asked about the deed is how important that is to bring that into your FSA office. not only does the deed tell you who owns that piece of property, but it's also gonna say where the boundary lines are and exactly what your property is. So we can get our maps to match up what you really own. So it is very necessary.
Now, you speaking of that on FSA side, program side, okay, from the city, I'm talking about that.
Yes,
we
on the program.
I used to be on the
Yeah.
program side, now I'm on the loan side. It is, I mean, even as when we doing loans, we have to know what farm, that
Farm
farm is
number.
operating, we still need that farm number. So it's still very much a part of NRCS, FSA program and loan side, but FSA program side is the one that's going to get you that farm number. They're the ones that need that deed to get that information put into their system.
Right. If there is a discrepancy, would they have to provide a survey, correct survey?
With air property. It's just ownership.
Let me just say, I have not run into a situation where a survey is required unless you're making a purchase. Now, if you're dealing with if you're buying property, you're going in for a loan on the FSA side, you're gonna have to have a survey of that property and an appraisal, of the property as well.
And also for farm program side, if you can't get everyone's information that's on that deed, no one's going to enroll you in a program unless everyone's on board. So.
Let me ask this as a question. This is on the FSA side. And of course, this is going from one state to another state and to various states. I'm assuming it's sort of a national, perspective now is how they operate. Let's say you must have a deed to the property, or is it that you must show that you have the administrative control of that property?
From what I understand, it's the deed, you have to know who the owners are.
Let me use myself as an example.
Okay.
I'm the administrator of a trust over that state farmland. Okay, which means I speak for, and I have trustees, and I speak for all assets that's involved as relates to being the administrator for that estate. So when I go into FSA, even into a bank, and doing business for the estate, they may ask me for the court, not the court decree, but the administrative certificate that is issued by the courts. And the same thing with the bank. So I leave that on file accordingly with them. So that does not require me to have well, other than that, anyway, that works accordingly when you're probated through the court. Normally anywhere in any state, that would work for any estate, even when they have property. And this is an air property situation.
Yeah, in my experience, which isn't just a ton, but in my experience, the process was you bring in a deed, and if on that deed, a trust or an estate or an LLC owns it, then at that time, we're gonna ask for that trust, LLC, estate paperwork. And we're gonna go through and see who are the members, what's the shares, who, is there one specific person who's, responsible or in control? We're gonna go off that legal paperwork of what that says at that time. So
Right.
I haven't dealt with any air property situations, so I don't know if I can really speak much into that. That's just kind of my experience from when I was on the program side.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I can exactly answer your question or not.
Well, let me just say, from the air property, and what we're seeing in certain cases, well, definitely, NRCS is not going to act without the farm number. No, you can't get anything without the farm number. That's one. Two is that FSA they have certain steps. I've seen them talk to and go through the process on the program side in certain areas. That if you're an heir and you can show where some people haven't changed over to that name. Okay, so they say, okay, it's okay to put it in your name, paying the taxes, but that don't mean you own it. You just heir. There are certain laws and governance in relation to that. So if I'm an heir, I'm paying the taxes all the time, and for the purpose of showing that I have acted with administrative responsibilities of management of this property, then I show from the tax records, the courthouse, that one, my name as the tax, taking care of all the taxes on the property. Now without, because it may be 50-50. If we didn't have a trust, I mean, you talk about 70, 80 folk involved, you know, with our estate. But showing that actual evidence that you acted on to work with an attorney, where the heirs do give you the administrative, by resolution of administrative authority of that estate, is another way, you know, to do it, short of the whole probate process, especially just probate it and get the court decree, you know, regarding the administrative responsibility of the individual. Courts can tie it up for a while, you know, and the laws different in different states. I don't think you have the Unified Heir Property Act in Tennessee. Have they passed it in Tennessee and our?
It's being considered,
Okay,
but it hasn't been enacted yet.
okay. It's passed in Arkansas, but in those cases, again, having that actual evidence, the individuals that you have and you have worked in control of the property. Now, the other thing behind that, in going to FSA and to be on the program side, being very mindful of, is that an individual, you may have shown this and then I leased the property to someone else. So I have given you a lease, done you a lease for this half acre of land that is heir property, but it doesn't have a farm number. Then I go to FSA and say, well, here, I have a 15-year lease, and I give FSA a 15-year lease on the program side on this half acre land. How does FSA normally act in that case on the program side?
Have the owner,
Okay,
still have to have the owner come in, have to have the, get a farm number, and then you have the owner listed, and then you have the operator listed.
so then the owner would need to, it would be in the best interest for the owner to just go get the farm number and then lease the land.
That's right, and
Yeah.
you still have to communicate that with FSA too, as well, because there's an option in there to list an owner and to list an operator or another tenant.
Right. So, and I wanted to mention that, you know, just as a companion to hear from FSA also. Is that individual, in a lot of cases, individual, it is a property situation, and people want to, it may be a lot, 2 lots, whichever, they want to lease that, so they can become a beginning farmer, urban farmer, micro farmer, and say, I'll lease it from you. Then you, as the heir or the administrative individual, it is best for those individuals to go in, get the farm number itself, do that whole process, and then execute the lease with the individual that's going to be the operator. NRCS is going to deal with the operator. And any revenue coming from any program you participate in is going to the operator, not to the owner of the property. So
Depends on how they have their payment set up. It really does. It depends on,
unless,
yeah.
unless you have a lease saying otherwise, okay, that is the payment share process. You can't structure the lease that way. But I just wanted to mention the other thing that FSA does offer, FSA offers, I don't know if they have one in Tennessee, but I know they have a CDFI in Tennessee, but they also, USDA has an heir property loan program. That's through FSA. FSA does not make that loan. The loan is made by a third party that actually makes the loan. They have a listing of all the individuals, those CDFIs, they call Community Development Finance Institutions, that make the loans for dealing with getting clear title and ownership of property, buying other heirs out. You know, maybe you can use it for other purposes as well, for legal expenses and things of that nature. But there is an heir property loan that is offered by USDA by way of FSA, USDA, with third parties, service providers, on that. It is definitely a work through process. Again, heir property is challenging. It just can be challenging from that perspective. We have not dealt with estate planning, and that's why we call it a barrier It can be a barrier also as it relates to accessing these resources with USDA, the financial system, with farm service, with NRCS. It does not stop you on financial assistance alone. But it will stop you on financial assistance on the program side. If you do not have that farm number, on the financial support NRCS.
And I'm gonna give a quick pitch. So conversations we're having right now, we have these every quarter with the NRCS to make sure you all are informed. We call them our state technical committee.
Right.
And you all should definitely join that, because if you're wondering how does everybody get this information, chances are they probably join that state technical committee meeting. There's satellite just like this, or you can be in person. And then if you're looking more of like the small scale urban agriculture, we have our urban subcommittee.
Right.
And that gives you all the update information quarterly, once again, on anything that's happening within funding programs or anything in between in the state of Tennessee. So that's a huge resource.
It is.
Huge resource, because you're getting instant information that most people are gotta get to the news, or they gotta go to GovExec.
I don't get it at all.
Say the mistake what?
The state technical committee, you can just go on our website, the NRCS Tennessee website, and click right there, or I'll give you all, I have some cards on me, you just email me and I'll get you set up.
They're also, in those meetings, they have discussions regarding their priority areas as well. So you know what our priority areas are as far as finance and where they're putting their financial assistance and their actual funding. Both, and then of course, where I said the technical committee, the subcommittee is important because the subcommittees make recommendations to the full state committee. It's sort of how that flow process, works, but it's not just on the urban agriculture, they have other subcommittees as well. But those recommendations come off the sub back to the full state committee.
That is great, because we don't know what you all need within the state of Tennessee if we're not doing it. We can't offer it unless you all come to this meeting and say, hey, you all are missing the ball on this. This is what we want as producers in Tennessee. This is what we want our funding, taxpayer dollars to go towards. Then we create a practice or enhancement specifically towards what the needs are in Tennessee. So if you're not coming to those meetings, your voice is not heard, we do not know what you want, and you will not get up-to-date information.
And that's why the subcommittees are so important participation as well. So when you're working and you're really working directly and being engaged and involved, that's technically with the subcommittee, and if those recommendations come to the subcommittee based on what you know the needs are in the local area, in your local community, you need to get that to the table from the subcommittee so they can get that on the table and hope for consideration and put in place by the technical committee itself.
I'd like to add one thing. A lot of times we heard a lot about farm numbers, but I want to make this real clear. You do not need a farm number to come in and apply for a loan with us. At the end of that process, you're gonna have to go on that farm that you said you was going to work. So that's when that owner needs to come in and add you to his farm number as another tenant or an operator. But to come in and request loans from us, you do not have to have a farm number at that time. You're gonna have to have one at the end of the process, because we need to make sure that you are on that farm that you said you was going to work as another tenant or operator. If you do not get that done, that next year you are not going to be eligible for farm loan programs, because you are not a farmer, because you failed to sign up as an operator or another tenant.
Man, I'd like to ask you one of the questions. That's a question I hope about one point I'll get some clarity on, and hopefully if it's not something that is established here in this area, possibly that the local offices can help with this whole process. FSA gave reference to the market, having to show your market and how you're going to deal with your produce. Some years back, in some areas, some states, She gave reference to the schools. Of course, the school that's have the contract, that's the pay program, and there's some other things go with that, but that's another meeting on dealing with market. We had that meeting 2 weeks ago. But there are requirements that actually come with that to get that contract. The other thing is on food pantries. Now, most communities or areas, they have the food pantry. Y'all probably have a great food pantry in this area in Bolivar. Some areas, the food bank, the state food bank, if the farmers make arrangements with the food bank to supply the food pantries, then they can be paid for that produce that's delivered directly to the food pantry. And the State Department of Agriculture works with them in certain states, through that process. Are you all implementing that program in Tennessee now?
No, it's not as a county, well, not as a county. That would be an individual contract, I believe, between the vendor and the government, correct?
Well, normally the contract is an individual, it's not with the governor. Some area we work with farmers on, it was with Department of Human Services. That what the funds going through working back with the food bank. And then, of course, the individual farmers have to make the application to be a supplier to the food pantry and what their produce is going to cost. And based on that, that's accepted by the food bank. You submit that by way of through the food bank. Then they supply that local pantry. Then maybe in Bolivar, whichever the Memphis area, whichever, then they become the suppliers to that local